Hi, 7th graders. Today we're going to be looking at the 8.5 lesson. So hopefully you got the packet from the sub, and your job is to fill in all of the answers with me. And then at the very end, your assignment is attached, so you can go ahead and work on the assignment. And when you're done with all of it, it goes in the basket. If you finish that, then you can do fact fluency, prodigy, read, draw, or any missing work. A lot of you still need to do the vocabulary for Unit 8, so work on that when you are done. Alrighty, so before we get started, our joke is why are eyeshadow, mascara, and lipstick never mad at each other? And your answer is because they always make up. Ha ha ha. Alright, our learning targets, we have 2 today. Our first one is I can describe and interpret a histogram that represents a data set, and I can compare and contrast dot plots and histograms to visualize data. Alrighty. Just a reminder that you need to do fact fluency 3 times this week. If you do it all 4, you get bonus points. Okay, let's get started. So here is our lesson, and this should look exactly like the one that you have. So our lesson today is called the Plot Thickens. So we're going to learn what histograms are. So our warm-up. I'm not going to do this one with you, but you can do it. If you had to organize these art supplies into bins, how would you organize them? So go ahead and you can just like draw arrows if you want this to go here, and then tell me how you organized it. There's no right or wrong answer. This is just how you prefer to organize it. All right, once you have that done, let's take a look at slide 2, where it says the little 2 here. So it says here are the 2 different ways to show the minimum wages of 9 states in the United States. So we have our dot plot here, and then we have a histogram, which is our new term that we're learning today. So how do we think that the histogram was made? Well, if I take a look between the 7 and the 8, there are 3 dots. So between our 7 and our 8, we are up to 3. That's how I think they made it. In between the 8 and the 9, there's 1 dot. So that means it's only up at 1. And then between 9 and 10, there were 2 dots. 10 and 11, there were 2 dots. Nothing between 11 and 12, that's why it's blank. And then between 12 and 13, there was 1. So how I think that it was made is they counted the dots. Sorry, my handwriting is not very neat on an iPad. All right, slide 3. How are the histogram and the dot plot alike? Well, if I take a look, they're alike because the number of dots matches the bars. So dots match the bars. And then how are they different? Well, it's pretty obvious because the dot plot has dots and our histogram has bars. The dot. Oops. If you want to type other reasons, you certainly can, or write different reasons, that's fine. Those are just the 2 observations I made, okay? Moving on to number 4, it says more states were added to the dot plot. Each bar in a histogram is called a bin. We need to draw bins to make a histogram with this new data. I'm going to look in between my 7 and my 8. I have 4 dots, so that means between 7 and 8, I need to go up to 4. And as you notice, my bar graph is in between the 7 and the 8. All right, in between 8 and 9, I had 2. So I'm only going to go up to 2. In between 9 and 10, I had 3. And then if you notice, there was a dot on 10. We don't count that in between 9 and 10. But now I'll count it in between 10 and 11. So that is 2. Oops. In between 11 and 12, I had 1. And then in between 12 and 13, I also had 1. All right, so there is my histogram. Moving on. Number 5, in statistics, each bin includes the smaller of the 2 numbers and goes up to but does not include the larger number. When a data point is on the edge between two bins, it goes into the larger value. So $11 was added to this dot plot. When we do that, we're supposed to watch a little video, but we're doing it on paper, so there's not one. Your $11 would go in the bin between 11 and 12 because we include it in the bigger number. Okay, so now if we take a look at letter B, it's asking which bin would A go in, or would 8 go into? Well, 8 would not go into 7 and 8 because we put it in the bigger bin, so 8 would go into 8 and 9. And our reasoning is because we put it in the bigger bin. So remember, you should be copying everything that I write down on your paper. You will get points for doing this, just like you'll get points for your assignment as well. All right, slide 6. So far, we've seen histograms with a bin size of 1. Here's a dot plot with some more minimum wages. We are going to make a histogram with a bin size of 2. So that means I'm going to do numbers from 6 to 8. So if I take a look at my dot plot, 6 to 8, there are 6 dots. So I'm going to make a big bin like that. All right, so then from 8 to 10, I have another 6 dots. From 10 to 12, I'm not going to include the dot at 12 because remember that goes in the bigger bin, so that will go in the 12 to 14s. So 10 to 12, there should be 4 dots. And then 12 to 14, I have 3. All right, so that's what it looks like with a bigger bin size. Slide 7, let's look at the minimum wages for all 50 states. Why might these data points be difficult to visualize as a dot plot? So if I go back here, I believe I have it written in here, all the different 50 states. So this is just a little snapshot. This is not all of them because it couldn't fit. Is it easier to look at it in a table or is it easier to look at it in a bins or in a histogram or a dot plot? Well, I think it's easier to look at in a histogram or a dot plot because it's way easier to read. So I'm going to write, there are too many columns and rows to look at when looking at a table. It's way easier to look at a histogram or a dot plot than it is to look at a table. All right, so slide 8. Each of these histograms shows the minimum wage of all 50 states in 2020. So if I notice that this first one is showing bin sizes of 1, so it's counting by ones. Our second one is counting by 2s, so it's going from 6 to 8, 8 to 10. And our third one is going by 3s, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 15. So I notice that you can see the data more clearly in bin size 1. Like you can very clearly look at 8 to 9 has that many, whereas if we look at the second one, this is including 8 to 10. So I notice that bin size 1 is way more clear to look at. And I wonder, why do they have it as bin size 1, 2, and 3? Instead of just doing 1, why did they do 3 different ones? All right, so then slide 9, different visualizations like dot plots and histograms help answer different questions. Which of these questions could a histogram help answer? So letter A, which state has the highest minimum wage? If I take a look up here, I can see what the highest wage is, but I have no idea what state that was. So letter A is not helpful. A histogram will not tell me that answer. Letter B, what is the highest minimum wage? We don't know exactly what it is. We know it's in between 13 and 14, but we don't know the exact highest. So that one also is not helpful. Letter C, how many states have a minimum wage of $7.25? Again, there's no $7.25 on here. It goes from 7 to 8, so we could kind of guess, but we don't know exactly. So that question is also not helpful. But question D, how many states have a minimum wage of $10 or more? That is very easy to figure out. Here's $10, and I want to know 10 or more. So I want to know how many states are in this range. So if I look, this first bar is at 7, this next bar is at 4, the next bar is at 5, and my last bar is at 2. So if I add all those numbers up, 7 plus 4 plus 5 plus 2, I would get 18 states. All right, moving on, slide 10. What is important to remember about a histogram? Well, the biggest thing that I notice when I'm looking at a histogram is that this is not, this is talking about a range of numbers. This is talking about from 6 to 8. So it could include a 6, it could include a 7, or it could include really close to an 8, but not an 8. So it's not an exact number. So what is important to remember about a histogram? It includes ranges of numbers, not the exact number of the data. All right, and then here's a little summary. If you're still a little confused, read that and see if that helps you. All right, our show what we know. This histogram shows the minimum wages of all 50 states in 2020. How many states have a minimum hourly wage of at least $12? So that means $12 or more. So here's $12. I want to count, I want to count all of the ones that are bigger than 12. So this bar here would be at a 7. And then this next bar would be at a 1. So 7 plus 1 would give me 8 states. Alrighty, so that was our lesson. Your job right now, you can go ahead and answer the emojis. Your job right now is to work on the assignment. I believe you should have it circled of which problems you need to do. When you are finished with all of it, you can turn the whole thing in the basket. So do the circled problems and turn it in, and then work on vocabulary, fact fluency, Prodigy, or one of the games on Desmos. All right, if you have questions, you can send me a message. I'm in a training today, so I'll try to answer as many as I can. Otherwise, I will help you tomorrow. I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow. Bye, 7th grade.